Hello everybody, and welcome to the preview presentation of the November release of Blueworks Live, which we will be rolling out this weekend. In this release of Blueworks Live, we've added something for everybody. The navigation experience for viewers has been enhanced, so viewers can now see spaces as well as processes, and can navigate and search through spaces to find the processes that they're interested in. Contributors can now view unpublished artifacts in the spaces that they participate in if this new option has been selected for the account. Alternative start events can now be added to process diagrams to model the situation where the initial process activity depends upon which trigger occurs. Visio 2013 files can now be imported into spaces to create new process blueprints. And we've added support for Internet Explorer 10. So Blueworks Live now officially supports IE8, IE9, IE10, Firefox ESR releases, and Chrome. And we've rolled out a number of miscellaneous enhancements that I'd like to touch on a little bit at the end. So let's take a closer look at each of these enhancements. Let's take a look at the viewer navigation enhancements first. Some of you told us that as the number of processes in your accounts has grown, it was getting harder for your viewers to find the processes that they needed to look at. As a result, we've enhanced the viewer navigation so that viewers can see spaces as well as processes and can navigate and search through spaces to find processes of interest. Here you see the new viewer homepage. You can see a tab for processes as well as a tab for spaces. Now when the viewer goes to the Spaces tab of the library, they see all of the spaces that they have access to. As you can see here, they can select different views based on their preferences. So they can see spaces that they've marked as favorites, they can see all spaces, and they can see a hierarchy view of all the spaces and subspaces. And within those views, they can organize spaces alphabetically by name, by date, or by tag. And if there are a large number of spaces in the library, they can filter the view based on leading text, or search for spaces that contain specific text strings. And when the viewer clicks on a specific space, they will see this space overview page that shows all of the process blueprints and subspaces within that space that they have access to. So as you can see, viewers will now be able to navigate and find their processes much more easily. Now let's take a look at the contributor enhancement. Some of you told us that your contributors needed to be able to view unpublished artifacts. You said that you were using governance workflows and that your contributors needed to be able to review and approve new versions of artifacts before they were published. So to accommodate this, we've added an option to the Customization tab on the Admin console. And if this option is selected, the contributors and editors that participate in a space will be able to see unpublished versions of artifacts that reside in that space. And here you can see where that option resides on the Customization tab of the Admin console. As I mentioned, we've also added alternative start events, which are often used to model multi-channel starts. So the situation where a process may be started by more than one trigger. You can see an example of this in the diagram on the right. Here, a process that is triggered by a customer request may require a different initial step if the request arrives via the call center, as opposed to if it comes from the web. The common way of modeling this is with multiple message start events, each one representing a different alternative starting point for the process. So now you can create alternative start events with Blueworks Live. You just click the Insert tool on the flow line coming into the activity that you want to be triggered by one of these alternative start events. So that's the tool that opens when you click the plus sign on the incoming flow line. Then you just select the type of start event to insert from the flowline menu. So in the example on the left here, you can see that I have the option I've clicked on the plus sign, I've opened the insert event menu, and you can see that I've got the option of adding a normal start event or a message start event or a timer start. Now, whenever inserting an alternative start event would result in the creation of a valid diagram, you'll see the start event available on the menu. When you don't see an alternative start event available on this menu, it's because the insertion of that type of start event in front of the selected activity would actually result in an invalid diagram. So things like, could result in disconnected process flows, for example, multiple disconnected process flows, which is invalid in a BPMN diagram. So in cases like that, you may need to temporarily add another flow line to your diagram in order to be able to insert alternative start events where you want to. You could add that line temporarily and delete it later. So that's alternative start events. Now, Microsoft introduced a new file format in Visio 2013 that's the .vsdx file format, and that replaced the older Visio XML drawing file format, the .vdx. So now we've added support for the new Vsdx format in this release of Blueworks Live. And so now when you go to import a Visio diagram into a space, you'll be able to import either format. So as I also mentioned, we've added support for IE10 in this release of Blueworks Live. So Blueworks Live now officially supports IE8, IE9, IE10, Firefox ESR releases in Chrome. And we occasionally roll out refreshes to Blueworks Live between releases, and these refreshes typically contain bug fixes and minor enhancements. Now, over the last couple of months, we've made a few updates to Blueworks Live, and I'd like to mention a few of the enhancements that were delivered in those updates. We made some enhancements to how the copy operation works. For example, there were previously some inconsistencies in how copy worked, which I won't get into here, but we've addressed those inconsistencies, and so now you can basically copy any artifact version that you're able to see. So if you can see it, you can copy it. Some of you may remember that our August release involved a revamp to the Blueworks Live UI. Well, based on customer feedback, we improved a few things. After that, we got feedback from you, and some of the things that really bothered you, we fixed. So, for example, the color palette, we had a lot of complaints about the color palette, the yellow looking like an orange, and things of this nature. So we tuned the color palette for activity colors on the process diagram. And the readability of some of the event icons, you complained about that, so we improved those. And there were some other things that interfered with readability of the diagram and the text on the activity labels and things like that. So we fixed a number of little things to improve readability. And now, for those of you that use a lot of link processes, you may have already noticed that now when you return to the original diagram that you linked from, you're placed actually back into the activity that you linked from, and that activity is highlighted, which is not the way it was working previously. So that's another recent update. And I think that's really all the enhancements that I wanted to share with you today. And so thank you all so much for attending this brief preview, and I hope you enjoy using the new functionality after we release this weekend. All right, take care.